Let's welcome him.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to Barbara and all the organizer, April, and thank you all for being here. How do you all find it, by the way, getting here? I got lost like twice in this campus. Was it the same? Yes. Alright, good. At least I don't feel like the dumbest person in the room. Which I normally do because I'm leaving software engineering to become, I studied angel investing and now I'm a venture capitalist launching the first fund, so I feel like I'm leaving the smart side of engineering and founders to enter the dark side of the dumb people that can't come up with a better idea, so they want to invest in somebody else's. And there we go. Okay, so is it via this or do I have a clicker? Or? Oh, okay, you can. All right, perfect. So that's me, I guess. Do I look similar? All right. So yeah, that's me, and I'm Francesco Perticarari. And like I said just now, I am a software engineer. And I've been working in normal tech and deep tech projects for the last 10 years, and recently started to angel invest, and now launching my first venture fund. In fact, we started making investments from the fund before first close, and hopefully we'll be continuing to do so after the first close. So that's a little bit about me, and the reason I now going into investing is because financing, in particular venture capital financing, has been recently skewed towards certain sectors versus others. And so if we go on, this is kind of the reason why I noticed there is a problem. Because besides my career as a software engineer and alongside that, I've been building the Silicon Roundabout meetup and community. Has anybody heard, by the way, especially London people, of the Silicon Roundabout meetup network? Yeah? Cool, alright, so I've got some people here, right? Thank you for knowing us and supporting us. And basically what I've realized by running this meetup and organizing these events is that whenever there was a cool technology we selected to present and we wanted to showcase, the harder that technology was to build and validate, the harder it was for them to raise money. And so basically, we started to look at some data, and this is a very recent snapshot from TechEU that shows how currently venture capital has been distributed into various sectors, into what's being invested in Europe. And this is actually fairly positive because we start to see industries like clean tech, like robotics, like logistics starting to come up, but still, of course, as you can see, dominated by fintech, by B2B SaaS, by enterprise software. And over the last decade, that's been even more so. And so what I want to tell you today is that there are new types of technologies happening, and the UK is championing it, and Europe is championing this type of new technologies. We can call them deep tech. I hate the term, but effectively what I mean by that is any new advanced technologies in software or hardware that do need venture backing, and currently the ecosystem is shying away from backing them. And let's see if you go to the next slide. So this is a little bit what's been happening currently in Europe. And if you go back to if we think back at the previous slide, we can see an increase. And this is positive, but it's still nowhere near where we need to be if you want to finance, if you want to fund advanced technologies, whether they are entirely new blockchain protocols as opposed to just build something on top of an existing protocol, whether they are entirely new ways of using machine learning or even entire new architectures at semiconductor level or hardware level or materials levels. And so the problem is that even though investors in funds, just like the one I'm launching, and even bigger ones like the Index, the Axels, and all the investors that do back venture funds are increasingly aware of the problems that we face in climate, in new materials, in lack of energies, and of course the Ukrainian war we're all painfully aware of now is only exacerbating a problem that has been there for decades. And that's one problem, energy. Of course, you can all know about the semiconductors problems because right now, you might be aware we're dependent on third parties all over the world when in reality we need to build new types of computer and semiconductors. And so, well, so the next slide. This is the problem. So, deep tech investment is increasing. There is an increased appetite to solve these global challenges, like creating new software protocols, new machine learning algorithms, new types of artificial intelligence, if you want to put it that way, as well as the underlying materials and semiconductors infrastructure underneath. But the backing of these at the very early stage, and that's what, as a community, we've been passionate about for 10 years, and when I started angel investing, I started to be passionate about myself, and as a software engineer, I was always passionate about. There's a struggle, right? At the very early stage, in the sort of bootstrap to pre-seed, early seed, is where investment and financing in this type of sectors is lacking, and this type of technologies is lacking. Because even now that there's been an increase, and that wasn't here 10 years ago, the increase is mostly felt at growth stage, not at early stage. Growth stage, we're about 20% of the rounds being deep tech. Early stage, we just past 10%, so about half. And one of the reasons that we feel this is problematic is because if we look at the background of investors in the space, it doesn't actually correlate to the founders and the people building new technologies. Of course, to build new startups, you need technical teams, you need data scientists, you need engineers, but the investors backing these people, they're not necessarily ex-operators and they're not necessarily ex-engineers themselves. They're coming from management on banking background, which per se is not a problem, but if the cake is so unevenly split, and this is some data from Diversity in VC, a UK non-profit, then of course you correlate that to the lack of funding and you start to question whether the way current financing for advanced technology startups is done might need new types of investors, and new types of approach, and new type of ecosystem that supports them. And so, in Europe, we also have legacy issues, because of course you cannot just play in the background of people investing is a problem. We also need to accept that in Europe we historically had a lack of venture funding compared to, let's say, the US, which leads the pace, but also a lack of appetite for taking risks. And as you might notice from my Super Mario type of accent, I'm not from the UK, I'm Italian by origin, and if the UK has still a problem of lacking the backing of this type of technologies, Southern Europe and the rest of Europe is even further behind. And in general, in Europe, we're still having a very conservative mindset that only now, with exited founders feeding back into the ecosystem, we're starting to change. And this can only get better if we continue to push the idea that taking risks back in advanced technologies, pre-early revenues that have several uncertainties from an engineering perspective makes sense. Because of course, it's not about the one company, but it's general companies. That's at portfolio level that we can see innovation. Some companies might fail, but of course overall venture is about better innovation, better returns. So this is, for example, the comparison has been done by universities in the US when they compare engineering, advancing technologies from universities and corporates versus venture capital. We can see the venture-backed startups and engineers and entrepreneurs actually advance technologies way further than corporate and university innovation alone. Next slide. And so we can also see that there is a financing reason to do that, because the cheaper it becomes to build software, the more startups, copycat startups pop up and they need to fight with each other. And so actually it's becoming more and more competitive to just launch a vanilla B2B SaaS as opposed to build a new type of protocol, a new type of algorithm, or a new type of hardware infrastructure. Next slide. And so what I want to leave you with is just thinking about what we do next. We do have amazing engineers here in the UK, amazing founders here in the UK, and it's the same thing all over Europe. And when you compare the difference between taking a gamble, taking a risk in investing in startups in general, versus investing in startups that are actually building new types of materials, new types of semiconductors, new types of blockchain protocols, new types of algorithms, new types of machine learning, then I believe that those companies that have the power to give us edge computing, have the power to give us space that can clean them. I think that this is what we need today, and that's what I want to leave you with, just the thought of what could happen if we start to give more backing to these type of companies. Thank you very much. Like I said, from the Silicon Roundabout community, please feel free to join us. It's a free community to join, and also raising a deep tech fund and investing myself as an angel. So if you build this type of technologies, come and speak to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesco.